Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the PSS Insights podcast. Today, I'm happy to welcome my guest speaker, Mr. Naveen Pandey, who is currently the Chief Executive Officer with Unibic Foods. Just a quick introduction to Naveen. Naveen has had an illustrious career in the broader FMCG space, having built his way up from companies like Asian Paints, PepsiCo, Marico, and now, of course, with Unibic. So, Naveen, I'll open the floor to you. Maybe we can just start with a little bit about your own journey, your own career so far, and some of the milestones, the learnings. And maybe we can get into a little more detail from there.
So thanks, Andre. I think my journey has been, a journey of accidents and discovery. I did not have, I did not plan for it. I did not, in some senses, aspire for it for a very long. But it has been a step at a time, and I think as you keep on going ahead, life and fate has its own way of showing a direction to you. And I think I've just followed, whereof and reached wherever I am today. So it's been a series of journeys, and since to give just some sense, in school I was a science student, so I did not know how I ended up into commerce. While I was doing my MBA, I was actually majoring in finance, so I did not know how I ended up doing a management trainee stint as a sales. Started off in durables with Asian Paints, and then eventually got into more what you'll call as typical FMCG with Pepsi Foods, and then with a stint with personal care, back into foods in Marico in India, and then again now into Unibic. So it's been a series of what I will say is nice accidents, which has got me where I am today.
Great. No, it's interesting you say that. So it seems like, sometimes you don't plan for things, but, maybe a circumstance, happenstance, things fall your way. And it also, would you also say that you don't plan too far in advance or plan for the long term when it relates to your career? You sort of take each day and live each day to the fullest, attack each day, so to speak, and then give it your best, and things start to shape up. Would that be something? Would you call that a mantra for you? How do you see that?
So what I would say basically is possibly the way I approach is to concentrate on the direction which you've set for yourself. Don't worry about too much about the exact milestones and when you get to those milestones and where what happens. I see sometimes people being very obsessive about things. I'm this age, I have not become this XYZ designation. This is what I want to do. I guess my own sense is that you should be broadly aware of what you are capable of what kind of opportunities you would want to pursue on. And as long as, broadly you're in the right direction, you're heading in the right direction, don't be too fussed about what exactly is the opportunity you got, what exactly is the level, role, designation you got. I think things will happen in place if you, actually work towards it.
Sure. On that note, I'm sure there have been many people who've, counseled you, assisted you, supported you through your career. How important is it today for a young executive or even a middle management executive who aspires to bigger roles? How important is a good boss, a good manager, in their own careers, and how much of it can, sometimes you feel like it's a matter of luck or you can't control these things, but what's your take on that? And how have you been as a leader, in terms of mentoring your own teams and leaders?
So I think I've been blessed to have worked with, very wide variety of people, extremely great leaders, capable managers. And that has given me an opportunity to experience various styles of leadership, and with my own experiences, possibly get my own sense of what works when and what doesn't work when. So I guess everybody's own leadership style evolves in a certain context, and when you experience in the context, there's a very different experience, and when you experience it out of a context, there's a very different experience. And as both team members and leaders, we need to remember we are human beings. So as team member, you shouldn't expect your boss or your mentor or your leader to be God. They are not perfect. As long as the intent in the right place, grant them some grace. And the same works for when you are the leader. I think there is a responsibility which you have to nurture, to groom talent, and to provide them the right kind of opportunities. Because if you are where you are, I'm sure a lot of people have had a hand in grooming you, and that is something which you have to kind of pay it back, as you go forward. And that's something which is a responsibility which each one of us needs to shoulder as we take care of people. So in some senses, it's one of the greatest responsibilities you have. uh, you have brands which you have to nurture. You have to be the custodian for the consumer, you have to be custodian for the stakeholders, and you also have to be custodian for your own people, in terms of striving and providing the best opportunity you can provide to them.
Sure. Great. Um, have you, looking back on your career, have there been, any milestones or maybe stories which you would like to share, maybe, as you've grown through your career, anything which has been a turning point and inflection, you know, um, to bring you where you are today? Anything that stands out? Maybe in some, your role in the field, interacting with customers, uh, and any insights would be good to hear.
So I think my experiences basically, which I'll call out, is, for example, don't say no to something. When you're, especially when you're early in your career, and you get varied kind of opportunities. Um, some kind of opportunities are things which you don't want to do because of your natural preference. Some kind of opportunities come up wherein which make you uncomfortable. I guess especially in early in a career, you really don't have much to lose. You have all to gain, and picking up experiences, picking up a wide variety of experiences can be very, very nurturing and fulfilling for future life. In my own experiences, some of those early experiences which were very uncomfortable for me, actually gave me the perspective which possibly I still sometimes latch on to. Um, say for in Asian Paints, when I became a branch manager, I was maybe around 23, 24. And most of my team was an average age of around 45, 46, with a senior most member being around 55. Now, it's not something which you prepare easily for, especially in our Indian culture. It's not easy as a young person without any experience to come and have a grasp over a team like that. But I guess it's the right time, because when I see a lot of people today, who are into leadership positions, I see that they've actually started managing people very late in life, maybe when they are 34, 35. And I really feel that, you know, um, as you advance in age, possibly your ability to flex your styles, for your ability to really make sharp changes in your own behavioral pattern starts reducing. Not that it can't be done, but it's possibly more difficult, is what I would say. And I'm sure, as a 24-year-old, I would have been very bad for my team. And, but, possibly their pain and suffering basically made me a better person of who I am today. And so it's just things like that. They are out of your comfort zone, but you know trust somewhere in the line they add value. Sometimes you just don't know when will they add value and how quantified that value would be, and hence we try and shy away from them. But if you're building a long-term career, a multitude of these things will add value. So I guess my suggestion to people would be to just stay open, you know, and try new experiences, try new opportunities, and they will add value to you.
Sure, great. Well, that's very insightful, and we'll come back to the point about having managerial roles later in your career today, as opposed to maybe when you were younger. Let's just move to maybe the second part of it, which I wanted to get some perspective from you on the broader Indian consumer space, and I mean this goes beyond food, but food, personal care, but though you can definitely draw from your own experiences in these segments, durables as well. So, how do you see the consumer universe today, both in terms of the companies, products, brands that are out in the market? You have the, Daburs, Marico's, Unilevers of the world, who are well established, and they continue to, bring out new products in whichever category that might be. Then you have new brands that are coming in, and there are many of them. In fact, one of my good friends, she has launched one of the health food products, which has now been bought over by a large FMCG company, and her story is also quite fascinating, and there are many such stories. We work with several of them, support them. What's your just a general take in terms of where is the industry today? Do you see the same kind of excitement in terms of the range of products and categories that are coming out and growing? And yeah, your thoughts on that?
So I see, the couple of themes you talked about. One, you talked about larger organizations and smaller disruptors. I think my own belief in that is that when you look at the consumer market or any sub-segment, foods or within foods, any sub-segment, what you have is you have a massive, what I will call as the center of the pie for that category. I think the large organizations which we have, some of you mentioned, names you mentioned, when you were speaking, I think are doing a good job of maintaining and nurturing that center of plate. And what that means is that it means to keep products competitive, to ensure that we are able to reach the ever growing Indian consumer, the new people who are adding to the consumption base, to try and keep costs in check so that the products remain affordable for a large number of people. And I think most of the large organizations are doing a fairly decent job of catering to this middle of the plate. I guess where they get limited is that they are not able to do full justice to what I will call as the peripheral opportunities. And these peripheral or niche or whatever we might like to call them could be on the extreme end on premiumization, they could be extreme end on specific need states. And I think this is where we are seeing already a lot of disruptions happening by newer, smaller, new age brands to come in, and we will see more in the course of future, to happen. And these large organizations will use a route of trying to nurture their own startups within that. They will use multiple models, including, like you said, your friend, acquiring some of these, young age startups who basically are able to break the clutter and grow beyond a certain size. They will become ripe targets for bolt-on acquisition for many of these brands. But I guess, there is a center of plate, and there is already intense competition in that. And in the consumer business, I don't feel that it is going to be very disruptive change in this. I think there are going to be 2-3 players who are going to be there. They are by and large going to be stable. Delta changes in these spaces will be slow and gradual, and they won't happen, in a few quarters. And True. The peripheral spaces will see a lot of action, and will see a lot of innovation, and some of them will become big, and many will unfortunately die. But it's going to be a very interesting space. So yeah.
Great. I want to talk a little bit about how products are delivered to the customer today. You have the rise of direct to consumer brands. e-commerce and D2C. You have consumer feedback now coming in different ways, right? So that's more on the consumer behavior, less on the supply chain side of it. So there are brands who've grown as D2C brands, and then you've got the traditional companies that continue to have large parts of their revenue coming from sales coming from, let's say, general trade or large format. How do you see this changing, or will it be the status quo? As there are some companies who will be only D2C, and then the large companies will continue to have the mix in the more mainstream distribution channels, and have some proportion of sales coming from these digital channels. So, any thoughts on that, or do you see any changes happening in this trend?
My sense is when we talk about new age companies, D2C companies, or companies which are predominantly e-com centric, most of these companies are today chasing opportunities which are, as I just previously used the word peripheral. They are not center of plate. And I think as long as they stay peripheral, they will have strong moats. They will remain relevant. They will be able to offer real value addition to their consumers. The challenge which happens is that when these D2C companies reach a certain scale, there is an aspiration to become more mass, to solve for a larger problem, to be able to grow much larger in revenue size, to be able to chase a bigger opportunity, and that requires them to go more broader in their consumer base, to solve for a wider need, to be present in multiple channels. And this is where I see a large number of organizations stumbling, because you are going to increase the difficulty for you on multiple vectors. It is not just one. Distribution is a very different ball game. Supply chain is a very different ball game. The consumer needs which you are going to is a very different ball game. When you go larger, you have to be most cost competitive. That's a very different ball game. Your organization is designed either for efficiency or for specificity. Getting all of that to come in, I think, is a bit difficult, and that is why we will see very few organizations which will be able to transition from, let's say, that space into a mainstream space. And hence, even for many founders, working together with large corporation becomes a better or a more successful, or let me say, a higher success chance route to grow their organizations. But yeah, people will try various things. There's no matter which way you augment yourself, that transition is a tough transition, and it's not an easy transition.
Sure. Understood. So it seems like you're saying this will be the structure going forward. So the periphery of the plate is going to see that innovation, whether it's in product, branding, or even distribution, and in those areas. Okay, got it. I wanted your thought on a segment which is getting a lot of sort of media attention, or it's always in the news, which is your quick commerce, last mile. Today, I was talking to a couple of CEOs from consumer brands. They are betting heavily on this segment, and so with the rise of the the Zomatos and the Zeptos of the world. Is this a space which will see a larger chunk of the pie in terms of last mile distribution? Will it take the place of general trade or will it eat into the market share of general trade for brands in general? And are there any specific kinds of categories, or where this may have more of an impact? Your thoughts on this?
So the way I look at it is, see, when you look at from a consumer shopping basket perspectives, you can broadly define shopping experiences into two very disparate baskets, and maybe some hybrid in between. So one clear behavior is basically what is called as a monthly basket shopping. Typically very, very accentuated in a US kind of a format, wherein you'll see, people driving in with their trucks and, filling out 2 or 3 trolleys of, baskets, and then coming back stuff, and then stocking a pantry room with the stuff. For us, we don't have that level of evolution, but possibly what you could see is a behavior in a Reliance Hyper or a DMart or some of the individually owned large superstores in respective cities. You will see people coming in with a list, for their shopping for the month, spending substantial time, maybe an hour or more in the store, picking up a wide assortment and carrying back home. And then there is what I call is typically a convenience, which might reflect in various formats. It might be a 7-Eleven in let's say in Asia, or it might be a mom and pop convenience store, wherein you're backing back from office, or you're walking back, or you're in a downtown street, and you want to pick up some items. You want to grab something to eat, you want to grab something to drink, you want some top up, maybe rice to cook, whatever. And essentially these are available in smaller sizes, smaller format, something which you need more here and now. Whether you look at modern trade stores, whether you look at general trade stores, whether you look at you know e-commerce delivery, ultimately it will get possibly broken down into some of this kind of behavior. And possibly what I said, these are the two extremes, and maybe there is something in between. So where the quick com lies is convenience. And in convenience, you typically have a model which is a high street model, which means that you have a small format store, but in a relatively more expensive neighborhood or a higher rental area, which allows a lot of people to pick up stuff when you are basically walking in, walking through. And you will see convenience as a format is also very popular in countries where there is more walking. So if you typically look at, you'll find it more relevant in a Southeast Asia than in the US, where everybody is basically driving. And in India, what I'll say is that your 10-minute delivery is the substitute for convenience. It's driving in that culture. And for us, unlike many of the Western world, the trade-off stage is there is that today high street retail and manpower, if you were to look at both cost elements, manpower is not multiple times more expensive as it in the Western world. And hence deliveries and convenience deliveries at the drop sizes which we are still viable in India, and the viability of quick commerce in India would be at much lower revenues as compared to the rest of the world. And that's a unique opportunity for possibly quick com in India, which does not exist, and that's primarily minimum wage led. Minimum wages in India are much lower, and hence you can afford to deliver a lower dollar value, of store in 10 minutes, 15 minutes as a drop size. And I guess that would see a certain evolution. And what it is seeing today is it is seeing that if you were to look at e-com as a delivery format, has got this advantage which modern trade has not been able to get. So modern trade has not been able to do convenience over the last couple of decades of their existence in the country, not to this extent. And I think that model is still being perfected, and it needs certain societal demographic changes, behavior changes in people for that format to become very kind of popular. But this is something which basically is working out in an equation much better as compared to the rest of the world, and emerging here. So in short, just trying to justify why do I believe that this space is here to stay, and I think this space is here to grow. Now, how big, how fast, how soon, I guess won't want to get into it, but I think, again, as I said, I believe in directions, and the direction is clear. I think e-commerce would be a very relevant channel for India, and that is primarily because there is a very imminent trade-off, on wages. Until wages really become much higher than what they are today, I see e-commerce to have an advantage in India as compared to multiple other places in the world. So yes, it's going to be a very relevant channel. And also for people who are wanting to do very selective selling, sharpshooting certain kind of target groups, segments, consumer. It's a very apt channel for that as well, because it allows you to really narrow down. And this level of sharpshooting was never ever possible before in retail, but now it is.
That's interesting. So when you say shooting, I presume you mean just piloting some products, seeing what
Yeah,
is the
if I want
immediate.
to today, if I want to sample across a product which I believe, is great for a person who's possibly living in Bandra West, but not in East. Today, with this quick com, you have an ability to do that. If you want your advertisement to be shown only to iPhone users, you can do that. If you say no, iPhone user is not a user, I want only Android, that's possible. So the kind of specificity with which you can work today is unimaginable from what we had a few years back, and it's only going to get more specific. It's going to get more detailed, more granular as we go forward.
Sure. Uh, and there are a couple of other things. I don't know if we have enough time for both of them before we move to the next segment. Any thoughts on artificial intelligence? Is it being used in the FMCG industry today? Analytics, AI. You sort of touched on it a little bit with the quick comp piece and getting the granularity of data. But are you seeing a lot of it either in India or have you heard much about it in the Western markets? Quick thoughts.
I think we just in the consumer business, we just waking up to the possibilities of AI. We are a tad bit behind the tech businesses or some of the others. So we are a lot of it today is being used in terms of inciting analytics. And really making the business, the insight sharper, being able to handle data in a much better manner. So I guess we've just started to scratch the surface when it comes to things like AI, machine learning, and what are the possibilities on it. And we really have a long way to go in terms of trying to figure out how to really evolve and become better. But it will impact consumer businesses for sure. It will impact consumer businesses for sure, because we are a large employer of people. And if you were to just look at very simply saying that AI is going to be a productivity enhancer, which it is in broadly, if I were to put very simple terms, it's a productivity enhancer. It'll get possibly one person to do the job which earlier 5 people used to do. I think that rationale and that case is still available in a consumer business as well. We employ a lot of people on front end. We employ a lot of people on back end. We have a lot of processes. We are managing tons of data. We are looking at insights. We are managing consumer interactions, customer interactions, and a lot of these can become streamlined, much sharper, much better with the use of technology, specifically AI and machine learning. But yeah, in India we still are distant behind. I think people have started thinking about it. People have started trying out small pilots here and there, but it's exciting times ahead is what I would say.
Great, good to hear. Before we go to the next segment, your thoughts on how has the Indian consumer changed from when maybe you started at Asian Paints to today? I mean, there's always value consciousness, so I think that continues to be a big driver of any buying decision. But beyond that, has the emphasis on things like quality, maybe sustainability to some extent, premiumization, willingness to pay more. You mentioned convenience, right, as part of quick commerce. So these are all trends that are coming in. But have you seen a real shift in consumer, what the consumer values and what they are willing to pay for when it comes to FMCG products?
So I guess yes, Indian consumer remains value conscious. But within, I think value is a very subjective and a very, of what you see value in, I might not see in, and vice versa. But there are certain values which have started to become monetizable, which earlier weren't possibly so monetizable. Convenience is one such value. And we are seeing convenience becoming monetizable more and more whether it is more um, you know um, products which are designed around convenience, or is it service as a convenience. I think we are seeing a lot more of thing like convenience getting monetized. uh, in terms of better quality or premiumization, I think there is a far more sizable market for premium today than what was 20 years back, which means more and more people are willing to pay a price premium for a better quality. So some of these aspects we are seeing. Sustainability, I would still say, is being nascent, but the younger generation, when I were to look at it, people who are today, in their 20s, I see them far more committed, and I see them actually willing to pay more for, willing to make sacrifices for a more sustainable choice. And that's very heartening to see, because I think as they become the main bulk of the consumers over the next maybe 5 to 10 years, we will see a very strong wave towards sustainability, because these consumers won't shy away. I think the consumer of the earlier generation shied away from paying a premium for sustainable products. Yeah, you, at the same price you would prefer a sustainable product, but you won't pay a premium. But I think that the younger consumer is willing to pay a premium for sustainability. They are far more conscious. They see the entire impact of climate change around them, and they are willing to pay a price for a better world. So that's very heartening to see, and I think we will see more of it as we go forward.
Great. Good. We'll just transition a little bit into. I wanted to talk about people. Specifically, people who are early stage of their careers, aspiring managers, aspiring senior leadership. Your perspective when you looking to hire, or you're part of the hiring process, or in general, when companies look out for talent. What are you looking for beyond the resume, beyond relevant experience? Maybe some of the traits of individuals today, and maybe if you can link it to what are you seeing in the market just generally in terms of talent. Uh, if you could just talk on that, I can get more specific, but I'll just keep it open ended.
Let me start off, and then absolutely please point out what you want me to dwell more on. I think if I were to say in one word, the most important thing while hiring is attitude. And usually when you are hiring, you are looking at people with certain relevant experience set, or people with a certain kind of an educational background. I think things like intelligence, things like having a certain kind of an experience start becoming table stake. It's more about the personality type. It's more about what attitude you bring to the table. And later on in senior roles, your ability as a people leader, your ability to work with people, motivate, manage them, which start really becoming the decision making points, or the differentiators, if I may say so. With this, let me say that what I would wish to see more of in people.
Sure.
I think first, I would wish to see more of commitment behind the ambition. I see a lot of ambition. Um, Sometimes I don't see enough commitment to back that ambition. And what I mean is that, I want to be this, I want to be that, but I am not really prepared to put in what it takes for me to get there. And I'm just hoping that, my intelligence, my background, or my degree is going to pull me through. So I wish people, as they're ambitious, if they're also kind of mentally prepared and committed to back that ambition. I think that is one thing I would want to see more. Um, Second, I think what I would wish to see more is in cases of specifically senior leaders, if people would to understand that it is not so much about themselves. A lot is more of what is happening around them, and how do people be more sensitive to their 360, whether it is people you know who are working with them in teams, or who are reporting to them, and how do people really be more conscious of their surrounding rather than being obsessed about themselves, their experiences, their choices. And that's something I would wish to see more of. um, I would wish to really see more team players, more collaborative people. um, so in an organization, I think there's a role for everything, and you want to have great champions, but there's no point of having champions who can't work together. uh, that's disruptive, that is dysfunctional. So if it comes to it, I would rather take a choice of not having a champion, but to have a dysfunctional place. So I wish people were to, um, understand this as an aspect. And I think most people will also take the same call. It's not that it's there, but your ability to put yourself in the back seat for a temporary amount of time or a short period of time. I think some of these things are virtues which we don't talk about as much, we don't get to see as much. And I really wish if I were to see more of them.
I mean, completely resonates with me what you're saying, Naveen. And I mean, you asked the question. Today, I'm 40 years old, right? And there are millennials who are 20, 25, 30, 35, and you get a sense that sometimes there's a little bit. I don't know if it's a controversial thing to say, but a little bit of entitlement in terms of what the expectations are so high, right? And a lot of the time, you keep hearing about this in a news article. Talent acquisition, talent retention is the new talent acquisition. How do you keep good people for long periods of time in your organization so that they can grow and meet their own expectations and ambitions? Yeah, can you touch on that? Do you, first of all, do you agree with that sentiment? And maybe from an organizational standpoint, how do you keep the younger leaders in place, your future leaders?
So I guess one of the things, as let me say, slightly older people, Andre, you're still younger, much younger than me, but slightly older people, we need to accept is we can't impose our value system, our choices, and expect the younger generation to just follow. It will neither happen at home, it will not happen at office. Okay, people, they are born more privileged than us. They have grown up in more privileged environments, and somewhere that privilege basically will reflect in their choices. We would want our children to have better set of choices than what we had, and it will happen in office as well. Then younger generation of managers will have better choices, and that's what we want. First, I think as some people or some organizations, I think we have to be very cognizant of looking at it positively rather than detesting it. So it's a good thing. We want that. We would want that for our children. We would want that for our next generation. We don't want them to have the constraints we had. So if they have more choices, if they have, if they are more demanding and they feel that they can do more, that's a welcome thing. That's a good thing. That means that we've progressed. Having said that, I think where we are not able to do is we are not able to communicate well. We are not, as organizations, as leaders, at times we are not able to understand the aspirations, the needs of the younger generation, or the Gen Zs, in terms of what means to have a fulfilling work environment. Is it not just a job? You need to have a sense of purpose or mission. You need to, maybe change the world. And understanding that aspiration and spending time on that is very, very crucial for organizations and for leaders. And at the same point of time, I think there is a lot more mentoring effort and a lot more coaching effort which needs to go in for younger people to also at times give them the right context, explain them the constraints on certain things, and to handhold them through it. I just think that multiple times um, we just the dialogue breaks down, and both of the people say that my way is the right way, and that leads to a lot of disruption, and that leads to a lot of churn, and that leads to people discovering out in their own way, of organizations figuring out, saying, oh, I'm going to have this attrition, I need to be brace up with it, and people to figure out, okay, I've changed 3 jobs, it's not that you know I have actually progressed, or life is very different. By and large, work environment is like this. So I believe a lot of these can be solved with not sounding political but better dialogue, and it needs more coaching inputs. It needs also far more open mind and um, acceptability and adaptability to what the needs and aspiration of today's youth are.
On that note, I mean, coaching, mentoring, training, I mean, everyone knows it's important, but in today's world, even organizations, they're under pressure, so much pressure for, results today, outcomes. So, how do you prioritize, skill development within your own organization, with your own people, right? Because it comes down to a matter of, do we have time for this? How important is it? So I'm being very honest. So sometimes it's a question of, do we train them and then they leave? And is it worth it, right? I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm throwing out, maybe a concern when it comes to, you mentioned communication. I think that definitely can be work, but these all take time and they take a lot of effort from leaders to do. Do people have the time or the patience to do it, or do you feel it must be done anyway? It has to be incorporated as a priority.
That is, I believe, that is what will differentiate great organizations from average organizations, great leaders from average leaders. And I'm being cognizant, not every organization can be a great organization, not every individual can be a great leader, and even great leaders can't be great leaders at all points of time consistently. So I think we are human. We have to be cognizant of what will be our shortcomings and what would be our limitations. But if you don't strive, you won't improve. And I guess the only option is that we have to strive. We have to strive to be better. I'm really a big believer in that. I think people would want to become better. So yes, I understand. I run a small organization. We don't have the luxuries which, say, for example, my previous employers, which are very large organizations, had. So yes, can I do as much inputs or as much training as some of those other organizations did? Maybe not. But maybe what lacks in terms of structural inputs could be spent in terms of maybe more handholding time, maybe more dialogue, maybe more on-ground experience. And there are various ways to supplement. So I would just say that, where there is a will, there is a way. Yes, you might have very substantial, movement at times and sometimes slow movement. But as long as there is a commitment, as a will, I think it'll translate into some action.
Sure. Great. One last question before we wrap up. I think we're already out of time. On the topic of having a more diversified workforce, we talk about gender diversity a lot, and there's a huge opportunity there for our country in terms of bringing a lot more working age women into the fold. And they are much more educated, more skilled. So that is one area, and there are other areas as well of diversity when it comes to maybe differently abled or people with not the kind of opportunities that we've generally had, right? Living or working in a large city. Your thoughts on that, and our organization seeing the value in having a more a wide variety of people.
So I believe the challenge which I see, around me is the challenge of inclusion. I think, Andre, I really believe it should be inclusion and diversity, because unless you have inclusiveness, you can't get diversity. And unfortunately, most of our organizations are actually going with an agenda of diversity and ultimately diversity does not work out, or you know s- suffers or actually causes some problems at times because of lack of inclusion. I think inclusiveness is the area where we need to work on. India as a country is very diverse naturally. We need to learn to become more inclusive in our workplace. And once we do that, I think, to me, the sense of the base rock of, or the bedrock of inclusion is basically having lesser biases, being more open. And once we provide people with an open setting and a fair working space, uh, I think a lot of people will surprise us. um, for example, sharing one experience from my current workspace. Okay, so I have a team of CXOs, and the youngest one is 38 and the oldest one is 71. So we work well. If somebody was to come up, it's a pretty animated scene in the boardroom. We have healthy, heated discussions, very passionate discussions. But that does not mean that we are disrespectful, or even we are disrespectful of seniority or experience, or we are disrespectful for youthfulness or lack for experience. So I guess we need to work and do a lot more on building the right culture for inclusiveness. And once we do that, I guess we work in societies around us, and whatever are the norms of the society, if we have a fair working place, diversity, or the natural mix of the society will automatically start reflecting in the organization. When you look at, for example, same India, if you were today to go into, let's say, Manipur, or you were to go into Meghalaya, in FMCG, a large number of distributors there are women. If you were to go into Delhi and find a women distributor, possibly, unthinkable. But that's a reflective of the culture and the society there. And businesses have evolved around naturally allowing that to prosper and to do that. Now, but these are happening in the small cosmoses of whatever the natural culture and society is. And when we start looking at it at a larger, broad space, how we can pick best of things and how we can allow a more broader, more tolerant setup, in the organizations which we run, in the places which we do. I think that's something for us to really think through. If you were running a family-owned business, you talked about diversity with women, especially women post maternity is a big issue in the country. Today, age globally has become one of the most discriminated factor, even more than race and gender. Actually, if you were to look at global surveys, possibly not in India, but age is possibly the single most factor, highest factor for discrimination. You were to go into a family business, do you discriminate on age? Promoters are there who are 70, 72, 73, 74, running their businesses with an iron grasp. Nobody raises an eyebrow on it. Everything is fine. Um, you know, Professional organization, no, you have to retire at 58. Lives are changing, healthcare condition is changes, life expectancy is changed. Um, Today, people are very healthy. People are living very fit lives, very conscious lives. They're very, very productive at work. Why should we let them go out of the productive workforce when they are willing to contribute? So I guess we have to constantly question multiple of these things going around us and create the enabling environment which allows for various kind of diversities to prosper. And once we allow doing that, they will add their own value.
Great, Naveen. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I think we covered a lot, and there's just a lot of insight and new ways of thinking about things we keep talking about. So really a pleasure, and thank you so much. Um, and look forward maybe to talking about some more stuff in the future. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you. Pleasure being here. Bye bye.
Bye.